Hello and welcome to my Tales of the Valiant Heritages video. We're going over the heritages from Tales of the Valiant's Player's Handbook and going over what they are about. Heritages are a completely separate thing from backgrounds in Tales of the Valiant. They represent the upbringing and culture of your character. It's what your family, community, or other authority figure taught you. So heritages just represent how you grew up in Tales of the Valiant. The first heritage up is the Anointed Heritage. As the anointed heritage, you has accepted a supernatural connection to a exoplanar force or a cosmic force. As an anointed heritage, you gain the thaumaturge cantrip and you have advantage on death saves. First off, you have proficiency in history and religion skill, and when you make a check regarding to a celestial fiends or creatures of the outsider tag, you have advantage on that roll. And you know common and two other languages of your choice. Next up is the Cloud Heritage, which means you were raised in a community with deep ties in arcane magic. First up, when you choose the Cloud Heritage, you get Touch of Magic. You get to choose a school of magic and learn a cantrip of your choice from that school. And when you reach third level, you can choose a first level spell circle and you cast that spell once per day for free. You gain proficiency in the Arcana skill, and you know common and two additional languages of your choice. The next heritage up is the Cosmopolitan heritage. This heritage is usually influenced by many different people in their life, as they come from major cities most of the time with many different types of people. If you choose this heritage, you get street smarts, which allows you to have advantage on not getting lost in cities, and also make particular try to check to find a business or destination open to the public. In addition, when you are in an environment, you can't be surprised unless you're asleep or otherwise incapacitated. You also get with this heritage worldly wisdom. You have proficiency in the history skill. And when you make a check related to understanding of the purpose of a significance of a building, rite, or object of the culture you're not familiar with, you can add your proficiency bonus to your roll. And if you have proficiency in the relevant skill or tool, double your proficiency bonus in that roll. And lastly, you know common and three additional languages of your choice. Next up is the cottage heritage. If you have this heritage, you were raised with the skills and practicality of an organized, integral, agricultural community. The first feature you gain from this heritage is the comforts of home. As part of a long rest, you can do a small activity to comfort your allies, and choose a number of creatures who participated in the long rest equal to your proficiency bonus. Those creatures gain temporary hit points equal to your proficiency bonus. This temporary HP lasts until you expended or you complete another long rest. The next feature you gain from this heritage is Homesteader. You have proficiency either in animal handling or the nature skill. And lastly, you know common and one additional language of your choice. The next heritage is the Diaspora heritage. The Diaspora heritage is a displaced community dedicated to a legacy of a lost ancient empire. The first thing you gain from this heritage is you get proficiency in the history skill, and you also gain proficiency with one martial weapon of your choice. The next feature you gain with this heritage is Timeless Resolve. When you or your ally within 5 feet of you make a save against being frightened, you and your ally have advantage on the save. And finally, you know the common language and one additional language of your choice. The next heritage up is the fireforge heritage. The fireforge heritage has communities forged in crafting, usually in inhospitable environments like volcanoes and such. If you choose this heritage, you start with Forgecraft. You gain proficiency in smithing tools and double your proficiency bonus for any ability check using them. In addition, you learn the Mending cantrip. You also get Heat Resistance, what gives you a resistance against fire damage. And you know Common and one additional language. Next up is the Grove Heritage. Grove Heritage characters grow in the values and traditions of the forest community, dedicated to living in harmony with nature. Here are some of the features. Canopy Walker, you can have a climbing speed equal to your walking speed. Next up is Natural Camouflage. You have advantage on dex stealth checks while you're lightly obscured by foliage, heavy rain, falling snow, mist, and other natural phenomenon. And you can always take the hide action even if the circumstances normally not allow you to, as long as you have natural foliage. And finally, you know Comet and one additional language of your choice. The next heritage you can choose from is Nomadic Heritage. And nomadic heritage characters hail from a tight-knit community that regularly moves to one place and to another. The first feature you gain from this heritage is resilient. You have advantage on checks and saves made to resist debilitating weather effects, such as those caused by extreme heat or cold. And when you take a short rest, you can remove one level of exhaustion, but you can only do that once per long rest. You get the feature of Traveler. You have proficiency in the survival skill, and you know common and one additional language you know. The next heritage you can choose from is the Salvager heritage. People from this heritage, for whatever reason, choose to go away from the normal cities and towns and build their things on whatever they could have on hand and build like shelter or tools they need. From this heritage, you get three purpose abilities. You can create one tiny non-magic item using materials from your surroundings. An item takes 1 minute to create. It can be anything from 25 gold piece value or less from the adventure gear table. The item is obviously ramshackle and resale value is minimal. After one use, the item becomes non-functional. The next feature you gain from this heritage is Tinkerer. You have proficiency with their Tinker's tools or any other kind of tool of your choice. When you make a check to create, identify, or disarm a magical or non-magical trap device where you have a relevant proficiency, you can double your proficiency for the roll. And lastly, languages. You know common and one additional language of your choice. Next up is the Slayer heritage. The Slayer heritage communities dedicate their lives to hunting powerful monsters that might cause natural ecosystems to collapse. As a Slayer, you gain Natural Predator. You have proficiency in the Intimidation skill, and you have advantage on intimidation checks on influencing beasts and creatures of the animal tag. You also gain the ability of Tracker. When you make a check to locate, spot, or track a creature, you can add a proficiency bonus to the roll. If you have proficiency in the skill or tool being used, you can double your proficiency bonus instead. And finally, you know common and one additional language of your choice. Next up is the Stone heritage. In this heritage, you were raised in a subterranean community of miners and stoneworkers. With this heritage, you gain ancestral arts. You gain proficiency with construction tools, and you double proficiency bonus for any ability check that uses them. You also gain proficiency with one type of martial weapon of your choice. You also gain the ability from this heritage, Eye for Quality. When you take an ability check related to the origin of or purpose of an object or structure made of metal or stone, you can add your proficiency bonus to the roll. If you have proficiency in a relevant skill or tool, double your proficiency bonus for that roll. And finally, you know common and one additional language you know. The next heritage up is the Supplicant heritage. Characters of the Supplicant heritage were raised in a community bound to serve a monstrous overlord. The first ability you gain from this heritage is Scurry. As a bonus action, you can move up to 10 feet without provoking opportunity attack. This movement doesn't trigger traps or hazards that you are aware of, even if they are active. The next ability you gain is Supplicant. You have proficiency in Insight or Persuasion, and when a creature within 30 feet of you spends Doom, you have advantage on ability check or saving throw until the beginning of your next turn. And lastly, you know common and one additional language of your choice. The next heritage is the Vexed heritage. The lives of the Vexed heritage characters are defined by the defiance of a supernatural connection to an extraplanar creature or cosmic force. With this heritage, you get Prodigal Discipline. When you make a save or resist becoming charmed or possessed, you can treat a d10 roll of 9 or lower as though you rolled a 10. You also gain Quarry's Cunning. You have proficiency in either Deception or Insight skill. And lastly, you know common and one additional language of your choice. And the last heritage on the list of the player's handbook is the Wildlands heritage. Wildland heritage characters were raised in communities deeply entwined with primordial magic. With this heritage, you get Beast Affinity. Using gestures and sounds, you can communicate simple ideas with the beasts and creatures with the animal tag, and you have advantage on checks to interact with such creatures. You also gain Shepherd's Gift. You have proficiency in the animal handling skill, and any beast and creature with the animal tag whose CR is equal to or less than your proficiency bonus, the target you fin attack must first make a wisdom save, and if they fail the wisdom save, they have to attack someone else. And finally, you know common and one additional language of your choice. Thank you for watching this video, like and subscribe if you liked it, and hope you enjoyed!